Listen to this. Misty Copeland took her very first ballet class at 13. At 13. Now, that's older than a lot of the young ballerinas that we have in the audience. 4 years after that, she was accepted by one of the world's top ballet theaters. Oh my gosh, what does that tell you about her? I know, it's incredible. You know how impossible that is? Now she has some extraordinary stories to tell about dancing on world stages, but the stories that she's telling in her Bunheads series of books for young readers are really all about the friends that she made in her ballet classes. So we are going to talk about friendship as we talk about dancing. Misty Copeland's new book is titled Bunheads Act 2, The Dance of Courage. Please give her the warmest of welcomes to the stage of the Fitzgerald Theater. You've come out on so many different stages. Are there still butterflies, or is this something like, people, I've danced for them all, this is nothing?
It's excitement. You know, the stage has always been really probably the safest space I experienced as a young person, just coming from the circumstances I grew up in. And so even to this day, I feel like I can be myself most on stage.
Do you feel like that is about control? You could control what you were doing, how prepared you were, and the rest of life felt uncontrollable in some ways?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an aspect of that. I think there's also just this sense of you can't see the faces in the audience. And, you know, feeling like it's really interesting because I feel like a lot of performers don't feel this way, but I feel like I'm not being judged. I feel like no one can say anything to me, no one can touch me. And when you see people's faces, it's like you see everything they're feeling and that they might want to say to you. But I think there's something that's so special about the energy you receive from the audience that it doesn't just come from the applause, it's just from the feeling of being in the theater, the excitement that you're hopefully adding something to their lives.
Boy, that is super interesting about the judging. I mean, the little trick that I play on myself if I'm a little nervous about being in front of an audience is everybody wants you to succeed.
Yes.
They want it to, but you're kind of, I mean, you've got a little twist on that. Like, I'll never really know in the moment what they're thinking. I wonder why that works.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's just, again, I think that having, you know, I'm one of 6 kids, raised by a single parent. And there was a lot of chaos in my upbringing, a lot of movement. We were houseless for most of my childhood. And there was just so much uncertainty. And ballet gave me this sense of calm and freedom and control and discipline and structure, all of the things I didn't have. And then once I got onto a stage, I felt like I was in this beautiful bubble that I'd never experienced again, that type of, I guess you're right, control and safety. Again, I feel like that's the word that I'm constantly feeling when I'm on stage. And it's the opposite, I think, of, you know, judgment, or you think about the New York Times coming to critique the performance, but that's like the last thing on my mind.
Wow. A couple questions about what you've just said. How old were you and how far into your dancing career when you had that realization that this is my space and I don't really have to worry about anything else that's going on out there for the 2 hours that I'm performing?
The first time I stepped onto a stage.
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
really?
So within a couple of months of starting dance, I knew, I felt, once I experienced it, there was no turning back. And it wasn't about, this kind of competition, or I need to be the best, or I need to get into a professional company. It was my life can't go back to what it was, because this is giving me so much. And it's always been so much bigger to me than a professional career.
Tell me what you mean by that.
It's felt like a lifeline. It's really felt like it's given me the confidence, it's given me the tools to be able to navigate life. I was so shy and so introverted, and I had so much shame around the way I grew up. And so I didn't keep a lot of friends close before ballet, because I didn't want them to know what was going on in my home life. And ballet gave me this sense of pride in being a part of a community and being a part of something that was bigger than me. And I opened up, and the relationships that were developed, I still have to this day. And it's really just taught me so many life lessons and so many tools and things that are transferable skills, that no matter what you go on to do, just being a part of this world, even if it's only for 10 years, I think I heard someone say, or even if it's only for a year, I think it's still so additive to our lives. And I think that's why the arts are so important, and arts and dance education is so vital for young people and for society and for humans to experience.
I wonder if you felt a kind of dissonance as a young dancer in that household situation that you were in, where you would, you'd go to practice and you'd feel this sense of control, and then you'd come back home to your family where you were one of 6 kids and a pretty chaotic. I mean, how do you join those two identities? I held on to it even when I was at home. I mean, I brought ballet home with me. And again, I started to develop a confidence again, and an ability to take these lessons and things I was learning in the studio and apply them to what I was experiencing at home. I mean, I literally was giving myself ballet class wherever and whenever I could, because it gave me this control again over my body. I had really severe migraines from the age of 7 until I started dancing, and they went away. Wow. And it's so fascinating, because I feel like a lot of people, when they think about classical dance and they think about, ballet and the technique, they think it's really rigid and you kind of tense up your body and everyone's kind of nervous and scared in a ballet class. And that was not my experience. It was like the opposite. All of the tension was released from my body, and I felt just beautiful and graceful, and like my mind could just wander and be a kid and be creative, which I didn't have that in my everyday life. That's really fascinating. Have you ever felt that sense of calm and certainty desert you on a high-stakes performance? I mean, you're training for a big performance, right? Is it your last?
Yes, I am in the midst of training for my farewell performance at American Ballet Theater. It's happening in 3 weeks, which I'm very excited about. It's really interesting. I would say that, throughout my whole career, ballet has really been consistent in the role that it plays in my life. I think there's been one season and one kind of time in my life when I felt kind of removed from that feeling. And it was the season that I was promoted to principal dancer. And there were just really unnatural pressures that a lot of dancers don't and probably will never experience. I was a soloist, and I was already had a name, and that usually doesn't happen until you become a principal dancer and you really have a couple seasons under your belt and people get to know you in that position. And it kind of happened in reverse for me. And so there were a lot of eyes on me and expectation, and and then the conversation around me being the only Black woman in the company for the first decade of my career, and that I could possibly be the first to reach the position of principal ballerina. And I was preparing for my first Swan Lake in New York City at the Metropolitan Opera House, and every major publication was they were writing about me and whether or not, if I don't accomplish every technical feat perfectly, do I deserve to be promoted? Would I be promoted? So there was so much pressure around this one performance and all of the technical aspects of it. And I've never thought of myself as that type of dancer that's going out there just to, do tricks or, kind of prove myself as this technician. But it's always been, again, this lifeline and this way of storytelling and this way of expressing. And I had to just keep going back to the basics, these 32 fouettes, what do they mean? Why is everyone so hung up on these things? And it's going back to the storytelling, which is why I love ballet so much. It's the fact that we work so hard to perfect this technique, but the point of it is that it's a language that our body holds and we use to tell these stories. And so the 32 fouettes are there to whip Prince Siegfried into a frenzy and into, and for him to forget that he has sworn to marry Odette and falls in love with Odile. I mean, it's kind of her final moment to cause this stir. So it's not about, the audience going there and saying 1, 2, 3.
Nobody is doing that.
Counting the fouettes. And so but I feel like that season in particular was really difficult. The conversation around my promotion, but I was promoted that season, and I kind of got back to center and grounding of why I'm doing this, and that none of that outside noise matters.
I have a lot of curiosity about kind of what happens in the moment. Mm-hmm. I wonder if, with all of the training and the very specific precision that you have to bring to the performance, whether there is really ever any space for serendipity. The person you're dancing with does something and you think in the instant, that was incredible. Now that frees me to do this. What, does that ever happen?
Yes. Absolutely. I'm
really?
so happy that you mentioned that, because there's a lot of parameters and there's so much structure around what we do in classical ballet, and we're telling these stories that were created and written and choreographed hundreds of years ago. So It doesn't seem like there's a lot of room for interpretation and artistic, creativity. But there is, and it's even more incredible, like you said, when you do have a partner who can be really present with you, and that's something I thrive off of. And it's really important for me too to connect with everyone who's on the stage. Like when I think about what it is to be a principal dancer and the qualities that it takes, to me, number one is leadership. And,
That's
I think...
not what I thought you were going to say. That's so... What? Will you talk a little bit about that, what that means?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a responsibility that you hold, and I don't think that it is or should be about just you up there and that, now it's my moment to be in the spotlight. All eyes are on me. But you have a responsibility to help carry this entire story on your shoulders, but it's also everyone else's responsibility as well. And so that's something that I've having climbed the ranks, and, it took me 15 years in the company before I was promoted to principal dancer. And so I know what it is to be in the studio company, ABT's junior company. I know what it is to spend 7 years in the corps de ballet, and same as a soloist, and just little things, there's so much work that goes in from each individual to make these performances happen. Mm-hmm. I recall, I'm very short, so I'm always the first girl in the line on the side in the corps de ballet. And, there's so much camaraderie, and it's so beautiful, the relationships that are built. But even when we're on stage, I mean, it's very painful to stand on the side. You start in the corps de ballet, you usually come on in a waltz, or, there's a lot of jumping and dancing, and then you stand still on one leg while the featured dancers come in and perform some long pas de deux. And you're standing there and you cannot move, and you have sweat dripping in your eye and your butt's cramping, and it's just like the worst pain possible. And then you're waiting for the principal ballerina to finish her bows before you can switch legs, before the next thing happens. And I just remember these ballerinas just, taking their sweet time. And I remember thinking on the side, I would never do that when I'm a principal dancer. And it was the first thing I thought about when I became a principal dancer. I remember doing Swan Lake, and you finish this beautiful pas de deux, and I'm like, I'm going to take my bow, and then I'm going to get off so they can move on.
I am going to shorten up the butt cramping because this is important. So I think I veered off of that question you started to answer, which is in the moment, high stakes performance.
Yes.
Is there any room?
Yes.
For?
Yeah. I mean, there's so much. There's so many incredible things that can happen in those moments of being present. To me, it's when I'm most present is when I'm on stage. And so when you have a partner that can really meet you there, again, it's not like you're changing choreography. It may be different musicality. It just may be a different mindset in how you're approaching the character. I remember one of my favorite roles is Juliet in Romeo and Juliet, and I was so privileged to have the honor of performing it with La Scala Ballet in Milan with Roberto Bolle, who's like the biggest ballet superstar, especially in Italy. And I remember in the third act, there's so much acting for Juliet, which is what I love about it. I love the dramatic theatrical roles. And you're on stage mostly by yourself, and there's not a lot of choreography. There's so much stillness. It's usually, I think it's actually called Juliet Still or something like that, like the moment. And she's just sitting on the bed, and you're processing everything that's happened on that day, as Juliet. And Prince had recently passed, and I remember being so open and so present that it was the first time that I really started to process and mourn his passing. And it was on stage during that performance, and I was bawling my eyes out right there on the stage. And it was just really incredible just to be, not that I was so removed that I was thinking about Prince literally, but he was in, the back of my mind. But I was thinking about the character of Juliet. Right. I worked with Prince for many years, and he was a close friend. So you're not like, wait, what? Why is she? What is happening? No. Yeah, I had the honor of working with Prince for 5 years, performing with him, and had a beautiful relationship. So
in that moment, you are going through every precise step. You are tuned into what your partner is doing, but there is a part of your heart and your mind that is open enough to let you grieve the loss of a friend. It's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah. I mean, art is incredible, and ballet is unbelievable. And I really think it's just about the way that we're introduced to it, the way it's taught to us, how we utilize it, how we use it in our lives. And it's just been an incredible, asset to mine.
I want to ask you about the stillness. How long does it take to learn it and to really inhabit it? And then when it's happening in a performance, is your mind rushing through the next thing that's coming? Are you preparing physically and emotionally for that, or are you truly completely still?
You're completely in the moment and still. I mean, that's why we work as often and as hard as we do. I mean, to this day, I'll see friends when I go back home to California, and they're like, "You're still doing ballet class?" Like, yes, we're still doing it. It's really about it becoming muscle memory. So that when you do go on stage, you can be completely in the moment, and it's really about, again, telling a story through the technique and through the choreography. So we work a lot, I mean, I think we probably train more than any professional athlete. There's not a lot of time that we take off. Even when we're in off seasons, we're constantly training and on the move. And at American Ballet Theater, we work 5 days a week, about 7 hours a day. That's when we're in like rehearsal season. When we're in performance season, it's even longer, because after a full rehearsal day, then you're on stage performing at night. So it's really intense, so that we do have that freedom, when we're on stage.
So in this stillness, again, I would think that in some ways stillness means rigidity and tension. You're holding your entire body. You're holding the muscles in your face. But what I think I hear you saying is there's a relaxing how?
Yeah. It's something that we train to do. When you think about balance in a ballerina, when she's standing on one leg and she's on point, she's on her toes, and there's a constant thought of energy moving up and down. So it's never about like holding your breath and being tense. Like, there has to be freedom and mobility within the balance, and you can apply that to so many things.
I know.
And so being still as an actor, as a performer, is one of the hardest things to do. Not feeling that you have to do something and that people are going to understand and it will translate. Walking in stillness is probably two of the hardest things to do as a dancer.
Are you receiving, even as you're still, are you receiving whatever energy the other dancers are sending out, and in some ways bringing that in to fuel your next move?
Yes, absolutely. Sometimes you have to block it because it might not be good.
Really? What? What do you mean?
I really think it's about like knowing yourself, and sometimes there may be distractions. Sometimes, it happens. We're human, and sometimes people like to fool around on stage and aren't as focused and.
Fool around.
Like
what?
Like joking or things that the audience won't see. But
the other dancers will.
Oh yeah, you totally notice it and see it. And sometimes it can pull you from the moment. And so it's really about knowing yourself and knowing how to kind of close off the things that are going to be a distraction. And even something as natural and normal as like a baby crying in the audience, and not letting it remove you from, what you're doing. You just kind of get used to it.
What's your trick for that?
I'm constantly, there's like a narrative in my mind in terms of, what my character is saying and what my character is doing. So I always have like a running narrative. And so it's just going back to that. And a lot of the time using the music to help with that narrative is really incredible. And I've been taught that way through a lot of the characters that I've portrayed. There's a whole scene in Swan Lake when the white swan meets the prince for the first time. And when I was taught the pantomime, which is a form of storytelling without actual technical steps, I was taught it almost as a song. So we're singing what the phrase is that the movement. So it's like, I am queen of the swans, and I'm saying this kind of narrative in my mind as I'm doing it, so that you're really present and there's a real clarity in the movement that you're doing.
That's incredible. The rhythm of that and the focus of that. Mm-hmm. Is it joining with the music?
Oh yes, it's completely rhythmical with what the music is. So it's literally like you're singing lyrics to the
completely
music.
Silently.
Yes,
you're singing along. Here's something. And you've never burst out with that in the middle.
Can you imagine?
Was that out loud?
It's pretty silly. It sounds pretty silly when you actually do it.
The other thing I was curious about, what you've just said about the training, all that practice, in some ways, when I think about any kind of performance, I think the spark, the thing that you just never expected comes from, a sense of anything could happen. And but
with that kind of level of training, then I think, are you in some way suppressing any of that spark that might strike in the moment?
No, not at all. No, not at all. And some of the greatest dancers you'll see are capable of kind of feeling the energy and responding to it and reacting. I remember the last performance I performed of Swan Lake was in Virginia at the Wolf Trap Theater. It's such a beautiful venue. And those 32 fuetes were coming back to haunt me. And I remember deciding in the moment that I wasn't going to do them.
On the stage?
Yeah. And so I didn't come out. Usually you have about an 8-count phrase where you will walk onto the stage to prepare to do them. And I didn't walk out. And I think everyone thought, oh, she's fled, she ran. But I had gone to the downstage left corner and I was going to do a piqué manège, which I felt was so much more exciting and really encapsulated like that idea of that kind of whirlwind effect. And I just felt it in the moment.
Wow.
And I did it.
That's so
and it was
risky.
Very exciting.
Do you think the audience knew something wild had happened?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially the people that come to see ABT, and they know every single step. That's why it was kind of like a gasp when I didn't walk out on stage and come to center to start the 32 fuetes. It was like, oh, where did she go?
How often can something like that happen? Might that happen on your last performance? Something like that?
Yes, it's possible. It's possible. I mean, I think I will be so present and just feeling the love that I want to just be open to whatever may happen.
How are you feeling about the last performance? Are you just so immersed in the training that you're not letting yourself fully think about it, or are you?
Yeah, I was just reminded by my 3-year-old that it's 3 weeks away. I'm like, what? No. I feel like I haven't been on stage in 5 years. I took the time to really try and figure out what it is I want to do with dance next. And the last performance I was supposed to have was going to be at the Kennedy Center in DC. And I was performing the lead in Giselle, and I injured my back and had to pull out of the show the morning of the performance. And I remember I was not sad. And I was like, this is not a good sign. And I really wanted to reassess, because I've never, I've always told myself, the moment you're not enjoying it, like, you don't deserve to put yourself through that. The audience shouldn't be out there witnessing you not really fully in it. And then I think a couple of weeks later, the pandemic hit. So it really, it gave me a moment to really breathe and figure out what I wanted to do. So I feel like I've really had 5 years to mourn my career and process what it's going to be next. And so I feel fully ready to go on, to have my farewell performance. I think it's a little different when you're in the midst of performing and then you decide to stop, and the company looks so different since I've been there, and a lot of the dancers that I've danced with my whole career are not there anymore. So it's a little bit strange being back. I feel like I'm back in high school and I don't know anyone, and I'm like, didn't I graduate already? Why am I here? So it's a little, it's not the same as, like Jillian Murphy, who recently retired, who's a principal superstar, with American Ballet Theater, and was still very much in the midst of her career. And then it ends, and then you're kind of mourning these relationships and so much more than being on a stage. And so I feel like I've kind of done all of that already. So I feel like this performance is really gratitude, and it's a thank you to the company for giving me the platform and the career that I've had, and all of the community and audience members who've supported me for 25 years.
It was an interesting word that you used, mourn your career, 5 years ago. I mean, there's been so much joy and accomplishment,
yes,
but is that how it felt?
Somewhat. I think it's just processing this constant that's been in my life since I was 13 years old, and I still want to continue performing, but it just won't be that. I've worked. Since I was 13 years old, the goal was to dance for American Ballet Theater, and that was the dream. And I still, to this day, can't believe I've had that dream came true, and that I've had the career that I've had. It's really surreal, and I'm so grateful. So it's mourning that, that I did it, and it's over, and it, it was a beautiful, beautiful career that I've had there.
Have you been thinking about what you'll be experiencing on that stage in that moment 5 years later? I mean, what's the self-talk, Misty? What's it sound like about that?
Just like to keep my breathing really even and calm and stay grounded, because I know, I've experienced it before where there have been really exciting performances and the audience gets really carried away and it can remove you from being in the moment. I mean, my very first performance of The Firebird in New York City, and I remember the audience was so excited. It was the first, classical principal role I was performing, the first time a Black woman was performing this role at ABT, and they were so loud I couldn't hear the orchestra, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know where I'm at in the music, and Stravinsky's really hard to keep up with. So I'm just preparing myself for a moment like that where I'm just stay really focused so that you can try and find where you are in the music again if that happens.
I mean, are there times when you can hear somebody in the audience gasping or, just this intake of breath because they've seen something really extraordinary, and for that moment that pulls you out?
No. I mean, again, like I was saying, whenever there's coughing or, you get used to those types of ambient sounds.
Well, what was it? Just applause that was so loud?
Screaming and applause, yes. It was like, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know.
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, you must not have expected that.
No.
You expected applause.
Yeah, but not to that extent. And it was a bit overwhelming. And yeah.
Maria Tallchief danced Firebird, didn't she?
Oh, yes. She's someone I've looked up to since I started dancing, and that was one of her, one of the roles that she was known for. I mean, when I think of the Firebird, I think of Maria, and I also think of so many Black ballerinas at the Dance Theater of Harlem, because that was a ballet that they performed often, and that image is so seared in my memory. And I think also is what made me feel so connected to the role. Having these women of color take them on, and then for me to kind of follow in their footsteps was a really amazing moment.
She was the first Native American principal dancer
at the New York City Ballet,
and that ballet was in some ways kind of recreated.
It's created for her.
Created for her
husband and artistic
director
Balanchine? And choreographer George Balanchine created the role for Maria. Yes.
I mean, the pressure of that. Can you? What have you taken? Tell me what you've taken from kind of what she did with the role and what she endured with the kind of. There had to be scrutiny and judgment of her.
I mean, it's on another level when you're actually sleeping next to the choreographer. I cannot imagine. I mean, I wasn't in her shoes in terms of having that kind of relationship with a choreographer, but Alexei Ratmansky created the role of Firebird on me when I performed it. And it is, the expectation and the pressure to please and to fulfill, what they imagined this could be. It's a lot of pressure, but I think that what made Maria Tallchief is that she was her own woman, and she was in full control.
Yeah.
And you could see that in her performance, in the photographs. That it wasn't about George Balanchine in the end.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I was just sitting here thinking, what would it be like to not only meet your own highest standard, but meet the standard of the person who loves, that you're in a totally different relationship with, and then you're in this relationship with, where they've also got their standards that they expect you to meet, and their success is in some ways built on your success.
Yeah, I cannot imagine what she experienced. But I do know that she left that marriage and moved on and had an incredible career.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Enough with George, right? Been there, done that. Moving on. We're going to talk about friendship after you read the excerpt, but I do want you to talk about Raven, if you will. Yeah. Her influence, your friendship, the mentorship.
Yes. You know, when I started out at American Ballet Theater, I was the only Black woman in the company. But I didn't really understand the magnitude of what that meant and what could be for my career, and really understand those who had come before me, because it's, especially 25 years ago, was not something that was available. You know, you look at these ballet history books and about different companies, and Black and brown dancers, specifically women, are not a part of them. We're not a part of the narrative of telling the history of this art form. So I learned of Raven Wilkinson. I was a soloist in the company, and I was watching PBS. And this documentary came on about the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo, which was really the first, American classical company that really, brought ballet to America. She was the first and only Black woman to dance in the company. In the 1950s, she was a soloist, which was really unheard of in that time. First of all, to see a Black woman in a big classical company, and then to reach the rank of soloist. The company was touring through the South a lot in that time, in segregation, and her life was being threatened. I mean, every performance, the KKK was in the theater. Sometimes during the dress rehearsals, they would come onto the stage and be looking for her. So she had a really difficult time. She ended up moving to Europe, where she had a beautiful career with the Dutch National Ballet. She came back to America, and she was working with the City Opera, just kind of in the background. She was singing a little, and she was like a super, so she was just like on the stage, and I'm like, does anyone know who this woman is?
Oh, wow.
Who's like back there in the back corner? But I learned of her story watching this documentary, and was just in awe, and then found out that she was still very much active and alive and in New York City, and she actually lived a block away from me.
Oh my gosh.
I
Wow.
know, it's pretty incredible. And so we ended up meeting, and my very first book and first picture book is Firebird, and it was written about mine and Raven's relationship. What it is to have a mentor who really truly understands what it is to be in your position, as a Black woman and in a majority white company, and just having her friendship and the relationship, the mentorship that we had, it completely changed my perspective on my career. And
how so?
I just felt like I had a different responsibility and a different purpose that was beyond just me as an individual getting an opportunity to do these roles, but that I was carrying the legacy of so many dancers, and that we didn't know their names. And I've written several books now on kind of the legacy and impact of Black women in this field that don't often get that recognition, and just trying to document our history as best I can. And so it becomes a bit easier to do when it's not all about you.
Although I would think, as you talk about legacy, that's even more, pressure, weight. But
I just don't feel
you don't
that
feel
way.
that.
And something, in my book, I wrote a book about Raven and our relationship. It's called The Wind at My Back, and it's called that because that's what she would say to me every time before I would go on the stage. Let me be the wind at your back when you step onto the stage.
Wow.
And so I've always, from the moment of feeling that responsibility, I've always felt like, oh, I have so much more support. It's like all of these people are with me every time I step onto the stage. That's how I felt, rather than it being this kind of big responsibility in that way.
That's so generous, too. Your friendship, her friendship?
Yeah.
Very generous. All right. I want to hear the book.
All right.
You're going to read the whole book.
I am.
Yay.
Don't worry, it's not that long. They're like, what?
And then we'll talk a little bit about friendship after the music.
Yes. All right. Bunheads Act 2. Misty loved spending time at her best friend Kat's home. There were colors everywhere, from the cool blues of the painted shutters to the warm shades of terracotta. The courtyard was a green jungle dotted with pink, purple, and yellow flowers. To Misty, it looked like a stage. The soft arches, adobe walls, and carved wooden doors made it feel like a fairy castle in a faraway land. She couldn't help but smile every time she was there. Kat's mama, Miss Maese, was also the best cook. Today, she'd made them tamales, Misty's favorite. The taste of savory and sweet at the same time was too delicious to be true. As Misty devoured her third tamale, she listened to Kat go on and on about her plan to ask Miss Bradley, their ballet teacher, if their next performance could be Don Quixote. It was Kat's favorite ballet. The costumes are the best part, said Kat. Ruffled skirts that swirl and sway, and toreadors strutting like peacocks and snapping brightly colored capes with style and swagger. But what's the story about? Misty asked. It's one of the most romantic stories ever written, and Don Quixote is a hero. Tell me, Misty said, breathless. Don Quixote, Kat said in a fairy tale whisper, wants to be a knight, but to be a true knight, he needs a lady. So he goes from town to town with his silly sidekick, Sancho Panza, searching for his Dulcinea, the sweetheart he's been dreaming of. In Seville, Spain, he meets Quixote, an innkeeper's daughter, who is not only beautiful, but fiery and brave. Don Quixote vows to win her heart. That is romantic, Misty said. Not so fast. Quixote loves Basilio, a poor barber. But her father wants Quixote to marry Gamache, a wealthy nobleman. Quixote wants to marry for love, not money. Smart girl, said Misty. Then what happens? The whole town has a party to welcome Don Quixote, and that's when Quixote makes her move. She runs away to marry Basilio, the man she really loves. Quixote is brave, Misty said. Then what happens? Well, Don Quixote catches Quixote and Basilio running off, but he sees that Quixote and Basilio belong together. Then Don Quixote attacks a windmill, thinking it's a giant that's come to harm his Dulcinea. He's knocked on the head and falls into a deep sleep where he dreams that he finds his true Dulcinea. Quixote's father and the nobleman Gamache find Don Quixote and wake him to ask if he's seen Quixote. Don Quixote sends them in the wrong direction. Did Quixote and Basilio get away? Misty asked. Kat shook her head sadly. No, she said. Quixote's father finds her and demands she marry the nobleman. But Basilio says he can't live without Quixote. Quixote's father is touched, and Don Quixote persuades him to allow Quixote to marry Basilio. Then the whole town celebrates their wedding. Misty loved the story and how Kat told it. What's your favorite part of the ballet? Oh, that's easy, Kat said. The fan dance at the end. Show me, Misty said. Kat whipped out an imaginary fan while hopping on her toes. Then she sassily switched her shoulders and jetted into the air. Misty could practically hear the castanets. Kat held a hand out to Misty, inviting her to join in the grand pas de deux, a dance for two, Kat said. This is how Quixote and Basilio show their love is strong. Misty was proud of how much she'd learned in Miss Bradley's class, but as always, Misty was dazzled by Kat's confidence. She had both the fire and courage to play Quixote. Miss Maesse's applause echoed from the balcony above. Kat blushed. The next day, Kat and Misty were ecstatic when Miss Bradley agreed that Don Quixote was a good choice for their next performance. Now the hard work would begin, as the class learned all the parts and prepared to audition for the roles they wanted to play. Misty had her eye on Cupid. She knew Quixote could only be played by Kat. They began with the port de bras from the Secadilla dance in the first act of Don Quixote. It's a fast triple rhythm performed in lines. Every eye turned to Kat to show them the way. They each imagined a fan in their right hand and placed their left hand on their hip. Following Kat, Misty swept her imaginary fan to the side, then over her head, and then back down in front of her face. She felt mysterious. The class repeated the motion again and again before breaking into a fast turn with their fans overhead. Misty was so glad Kat suggested this ballet. The dances were different and fun. Misty was excited to see Wolfie learning the role of Don Quixote. He was funny and was always trying to make the girls laugh. He would be perfect to play the role of the silly man. Misty watched with the rest of the class as Ash and Kat danced together. Ash was much taller than Kat, but still, they were two dancers in sync, until Ash's feet suddenly tangled with Kat's, sending her flying to the floor. Kat grimaced in pain as Miss Bradley lightly touched her ankle. "I don't think it's broken," Miss Bradley said, "but it's badly sprained. I'm sorry, Kat, but you've got to rest that ankle. You won't be able to perform in Don Quixote." Misty could see Kat's heart break into a million pieces. The next day at auditions, Kat sat with her ankle wrapped. Her eyes were puffy from crying, but she gave a small smile when Misty saw her. "How are you feeling?" Misty asked. "Honestly, sad that I can't perform in Don Quixote, but happy that the class gets to." "It will be a performance dedicated to you," Misty said. Kat gave Misty a real smile then. Later that week, Miss Bradley assigned the roles for Don Quixote. It was bittersweet when Kat heard Kaylin's name called for the role of Quixote. Misty squeezed Kat's hand. And when Misty's name was called for the role of Cupid, Kat squeezed her hand right back. Miss Bradley surprised Kat then, calling her to the front of the class. "Kat, would you like to tell us about Don Quixote's dream?" Kat couldn't contain her smile. She moved slowly to the front of the studio on her crutches, but once she was settled, Kat saw the entire class was focused on her. Her frightened eyes found Misty's. She gave Kat a small nod that Kat knew meant, "You can do it." In the same hushed fairy tale voice she had used to tell Misty the story of Don Quixote, Kat told their class about Don Quixote's dream, where he found his true Dulcinea. Misty again felt the magic of Kat's courtyard and held that feeling close like a secret. The class applauded Kat, and her cheeks turned plum red. Kaylin asked Kat to watch her practice the port de bras. She wanted to be sure she performed it perfectly, like Kat would. "You should perform it like you," Kat said. "You're going to do great." "Thank you," Kaylin said, smiling. And Kat was right. After weeks of practice, they all did great. Kat cheered them on from the first row. Her ankle better, she led the audience in a standing ovation. And just as Misty promised, every bunhead had danced Don Quixote for Kat, who was the Dulcinea to them all.
We're holding so much right now over
Abby Wolf and Eric Mason. Abby, how did you choose the song? How'd you choose the song? It's beautiful.
Thank you. It's, I figured from the little bit that I know about ballet and the sizable amount that I know about art and art making, a little bit of the lyrics talk about how we have to walk the walk and not just talk the talk if we want to put in the time to get good at something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. This is lovely. You're listening to Talking Volumes at the Fitzgerald Theater with ballet dancer and writer Misty Copeland. Her new book is titled Bunheads Act 2, The Dance of Courage. And I'm Carrie Miller. I want to talk about friendship. That book is all about not being so competitive that it overrides your friendship. Mm-hmm. I find that a little hard to believe that that this is representative of how it is in a company, even as a young dancer. Mm-hmm. So correct my impressions.
Yeah, everything that I do off the stage is to really be able to bring opportunity and access to this art form, because the way that I've experienced it is very different from a lot of the tropes that we see in the way ballet is depicted in film and in media. And I feel that with the platform that I have, that it's my responsibility to give another another side of what the many layers of what it is to be an artist, the many layers of what it is to be a ballet dancer and to exist in a professional company. I think that we've gotten used to this one narrative, and then you just kind of, it's easy.
You mean the Hollywood
narrative of what that is. And, I often say if I didn't have the experiences that I have, my personal experiences with ballet, and I saw these depictions, I wouldn't want to put my kid in ballet. To me, what has been the most important and the most beautiful are the relationships. A lot of these, I joined the studio company when I was 17, and I joined the main company when I was 19. I'm 43 now. And these are people you grow up with, and you travel the world with, and you know better and spend more time with than your own family. So it's not the way that people imagine it. Of course, there's going to be some competition, and I think in a healthy way, but we're a part of a team when you're in a company, and we're all working together. It's different from a lot of sports, and it's not, we're not in the Olympics, we're not kind of competing in that way. We're all working towards the same goal, getting these performances on the stage and making it the most memorable and beautiful experience for the audience. So I would say, when people ask me, what are you going to miss the most about your career with ABT? It's those people. It's the memories that we've created on the stage. I was talking earlier about being in the corps de ballet, and I think specifically the women, how you come together because you do so much together on the stage when you're in the corps de ballet. These memories, again, I was the first girl in the line and being in pain, and the tallest girl in the back of the line would start humming really quietly, and it would trickle down to the front, and it was just a way of us kind of staying connected and keeping our minds off the pain. Like, those are the types of moments that happen that are really incredible and really bonding and really beautiful. And I've been fortunate that I've had those types of experiences and relationships from the moment I stepped into a ballet studio. And that's what I want to recreate, whether it's through my foundation and the free ballet classes that we're offering in community centers in New York City, through the books that I'm writing, that I want to show that there are so many other experiences that happen within this art form.
You said at the beginning of our conversation that when you first started in ballet classes and your family was moving around a lot, you didn't want your friends to know what your home life was like. But of course, the thing about a true friend is
I didn't
love
have
you
true
for all of
friends
it.
before ballet.
Really?
Yeah. My siblings were my friends. I didn't have anyone close to me. It wasn't until I entered into a ballet studio that I felt I could be vulnerable. It was just a very different experience, and I was becoming a different girl by having the experience of this art form and being in an environment where I felt safe again, and I felt like it was very nurturing. And not everyone has this experience in ballet. You know, there are a lot of professional schools that are not nurturing, and they're not inviting, and they're not inclusive. And I think it's really up to us as parents to find the right environments, and, you know, whether that be, you know, teachers who look like your children and students that will understand their journeys. I think that it's vital to their experience, and it's not always about the biggest named school. And, you know, I came from a very small school in a small town in Los Angeles. And, you know, when I was brought into the school, I was discovered on a basketball court at my local Boys and Girls Club. And the teacher was there looking for diverse students to give scholarships to, because she wanted to bring the community in and for them to all experience this art form, and not just for those who were privileged or had people her family members who had been a part of the art form before. And so that was literally my entry into it. I felt like people wanted me to be there. And I felt included. And it really wasn't until I became a professional did I really feel like, oh my gosh, I'm different, and maybe I don't belong in this space. But my whole training, it really gave me this this grounding and this understanding of the importance of the art form, and that it was this beautiful escape that I had that added to my life.
I mean, it's true that in true friendship, you allow yourself to be seen and vulnerable. Have you been able to maintain, as you've risen, have you been able to maintain that sense of vulnerability off the stage with the people that are closest and most important to you?
Absolutely. I feel like ballet is so humbling. You know, it's not...
In what way?
It's... every day is another opportunity to be your best. You know, it's not, yes, you work for years and years and you build strength in the technique, but your body is constantly changing, and literally from day to day. You know, we're so sensitive as human beings, and you go into the studio and it's like you're starting again. So, you know, it's not like, oh, I received all this praise the night before and now, you know, it's like, no, and then you go in and you're starting from scratch, and you're having to prove yourself again and again. And so there's just something that's very humbling, and I think you have to be vulnerable to be an artist and to be, I think, a ballet dancer in particular. And I think that it just lends itself to like who I am as a person. And so, yes, I pride myself on the beautiful relationships and friendships that I have. I don't have a big circle of friends. I've never been that, you know, the life of the party that's got like a million people around me, but I like to keep a small circle of friends that you know, I can be open and vulnerable with.
Stacey Abrams was here on the stage for the Fitz a few weeks ago, and we found ourselves talking about friendship, and I asked her what kind of a friend she is, and she said, well, I'm not the friend you call at midnight to moan about your boyfriend, because at that point I'm like, figure it out, you know what to do, get rid of the guy, whatever. But I am the friend you call when you really need a friend and you need somebody to step in and help you work through what you've decided to do.
Yeah.
So I ask you what kind of a friend you are, Misty.
I'm pretty intolerable when it comes to the boyfriend stuff too. But I think that I'm someone that's a really good listener.
Yeah.
And can consistently be there for my friends when they need me. And if they need to have a glass of prosecco, I'll be there.
Now we know the way to your heart. All right. We have some young dancers who really have, I hope, a lot of questions for you. So why don't we hear one last song? We'll get the microphones out into the audience, and you can ask your questions. Be thinking what you want to know from Misty. Mm-hmm. Let's hear from Eric and Abby one last time.
Don't matter who told you that you don't belong, 'cause you know that what was wrong. It don't matter who told you that you don't belong. You deserve to be here. You know that fool was wrong. You deserve to be here. So come on, sing a song. Virtue of the fact that you get to take up space. It's no debate. You deserve to be here. You can take up space. Oh, so long ago, someone told me I was in the wrong. I was in the wrong line. So long ago now, I don't remember anymore. But someone told me I was in the wrong line. Oh, so long ago, someone told me I was in the wrong. I was in the wrong line. You never know until you step inside. They try to tell you, oh, but they don't know. We're just tiny creatures crawling in the dirt. Life's so super fleeting, but for what it's worth, what you gonna do with your time here on the earth? Virtue of the fact that you're you, or that you're here at all. Creature cry, you deserve to be here. Oh, you deserve to be here. Oh, you deserve to be here. So come on, creature crawl.
Abby Wolf and Eric Mason. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, microphones in the audience. And just a reminder, because somebody asked me about this, you'll hear the edited version on the air, but you can hear the whole thing, including your questions on the podcast. All right? Okay, on NPR News, of course. Okay, questions. Where are all our young dancers? Oh, right back there. Okay, we'll come back.
Hi.
Do you have any stories from funny stories from backstage, or just any funny stories from your experience as a dancer?
I love that. I love that question. One of my favorite things about performing is that you often don't know what's going to happen. I mean, some stuff really is out of your control. You know, when you're not dealing with, you have the privilege of having an orchestra, but when you have a live orchestra and you have a conductor that is maybe not looking at what you're doing on the stage, and they go at their own tempo, and there's a lot of things that you can't control. But one of my favorite things is falling on stage. What? I just think it's so hilarious. I mean, if you're not getting hurt, I just think, I mean, for myself, I mean, I've fallen so many times on the stage. I've been hurt from falling, but I've been not gotten hurt many times. And I just think it's so funny. And it's about like what you do once that happens, because the audience is like, oh gosh, where are we going from here? Is this whole show just going down? And you know, I remember, I think it was opening night. We were in Tokyo in Japan. We were doing Don Quixote, actually. And I was doing one of the flower girls. It was a soloist role. And I was the jumping girl. You come out on stage, and the first thing you do is a cabriole derriere. And I landed from the cabriole and fell right on my face. Oh. And like, you could hear the audience just like, ooh! Like, I mean, like, I heard later that the artistic director like jumped up out of his seat, was like running towards the stage. And I got up and I was like, I've got to win them back. And so I wasn't hurt. So I just like dusted myself off, and like I got off the stage, and my colleagues were like, we've never seen you jump that high before.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
You get the adrenaline going, and you're like, all right, the party's happening now.
I'm so glad you asked that question. All right. Question right up there in the first balcony.
What's your favorite kind of ice cream?
Oh, I love that. I love ice cream, actually. I like making it. I like eating it. I love mint chip, but I spit out the chips.
Then what's the point?
I know, there's something about the flavor of what the chips bring, but I don't want to eat them. I don't like chocolate. I know.
What?
I know.
Oh my God,
I know,
what?
I know.
Oh my gosh. Question right down here.
When did you decide that you wanted to become a professional dancer?
So when I was introduced to ballet, I had no interest in it. I loved moving. I loved listening to all the music that was on the radio at the time, you know, MTV videos and BET, and a lot of hip hop and R&B and pop, and so I had just been made captain of the drill team, which was like such a big deal for me. I'd never done any form of dance before. And so when ballet was introduced to me, I was like, why would I do this? Like, I'm getting to dance to George Michael and Mariah Carey. Yeah. Like, what is this classical music? And, you know, and then by the time I got into the studio, I had fallen in love with it. You know, when I transitioned from the basketball court to the actual ballet studio, I was like, oh, this is different. And this is something that I need and that's missing. I knew within the first month that I would do it for the rest of my life. I remember the first time I saw ABT perform live. There's a theme today, but it was the ballet Don Quixote. And I saw Paloma Herrera dance Kitri and Angel Correa perform Basilio. And I was like, this is it. ABT is the company. And like, there's no looking back. And I fell in love. And I think because I started dancing at a later age, at 13, and my teacher was so invested in me, I lived with her for 3.5 years so that I could focus on my training. It was hard for my mother to shuttle me back and forth, and we didn't have a car all the time. So I lived with her, and we knew like the investment that she was making in me, like it was towards becoming a professional dancer.
Wow. Question right back there.
My name's Nomi.
Hi.
I go to Concept Paviel, and my question is, do you have any advice for new dancers?
Mm-hmm. It's so nice to meet you. You know, I think it's really important that you find your own passion and joy for it. You know, I think that everyone has their own entry points into dance, and a lot of the time for our younger dancers, it's because your parents put you in it. But I think it's important to really to really find the joy in it. To me, that's like number one. That you have to, in building these different programs I have, like with my foundation, like that's the priority, is that the children are having fun. And though it can feel serious and, it's a discipline, but it really should be about expressing yourself and having fun while you're doing it.
Question right up there in the balcony.
Have you ever danced on like this stage?
On this stage? Or on the stage? Oh, many stages. I've danced on so many stages all around the world, but probably one of the most fun stages that I've danced on was atop Prince's piano.
Wow. That's it. Well, you have to say a little more about that. You can't leave it at that.
Yeah. Prince had, I found this out many years later after meeting him and working with him, but he had been following my career probably since the age of 15.
Oh, wow.
And by the time I must have been maybe 24, 25, he contacted me. A friend of mine, I woke up one Saturday morning and a friend of mine said, Prince is trying to get in touch with you. Can I give him your number? And I was like, Prince of what country? I was like, that was the farthest thing from my mind. And she was like, no, the musician. And I was like, oh, okay. Why would he want to talk to me? And so we ended up, he was like, I'm such a fan of yours. And
wow.
I remade this song called Crimson and Clover, and I want you to be in the music video. He's like, I actually already filmed it. I'm trying to get a hold of you for a year. And I was like, who have you been calling? Like, I'm right here. And he was like, I shot it with another dancer and I'm just still not satisfied because I had you in mind for it. I ended up flying out that weekend, shooting the music video, and then we stayed in touch, and I toured with him all over the world. We performed at Madison Square Garden. I was a part of creating his Welcome to America tour, and it was his idea. He was like, I want you to dance on top of my piano. And I was like, I don't think you understand how this works with point shoes, And so I ended up having, special material put on the bottoms of my point shoes so that I wouldn't slip off the piano.
Wow.
And though I brought in a choreographer, he kind of took over and choreographed the dance. And it was really incredible to have, to be spinning on top of his purple grand piano and at Madison.
Oh my gosh, Misty. I mean, he was a noted perfectionist.
Oh yeah. He was really great about working around my schedule. I danced for a company, so it's not like I could just kind of take off whenever he needed me to. So I would come and perform with him whenever I had nights off at American Ballet Theater. But I would be up all night rehearsing. So I remember I was performing at BAM in Brooklyn at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, and we were doing the Nutcracker, and I would rehearse all day, probably until 8 or so at night, and then he would pick me up and we would go somewhere, whether it be the Madison Square Garden or a room, and rehearse until 2 in the morning. And I'm like, I don't get to sleep in the morning, okay? I have rehearsal, I've got to go. But he was a perfectionist, and it showed in his work.
The kind of thing you can do in your mid-20s, right?
Right.
Yeah. It'd be hard to keep that up. Okay, question right over there.
You may have just answered it, but what has been your biggest pinch me moment in your career?
I can't find where you are.
She's right over there on the right-hand side.
Hi. Wow, my biggest pinch me moment. I think getting promoted was a pretty big one. I think every dancer, when you start dancing, you have those dreams of being the swan or Aurora and sleeping, whatever it may be. And once you get into the midst of really being in a company's often that dream goes away quickly. And you're like, there's so much more that goes into this. I would say another would be being on the cover of Time magazine. I never imagined that was something I would do. Writing books. I mean, everything has been just like a very, I don't know, just humbling, and things I never ever thought I would do, at 13 years old, living in a motel, that this is where I would end up.
It's a pinch me life.
Yes.
Amazing one. Okay, right down there and then up in the box.
Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Misty, thank you so much for coming to Minnesota.
Thank you.
And being a part of this. Our beautiful state has gotten so much tragic publicity lately. So this is just a lovely experience.
Thank you.
And obviously you're in the hands of a fantastic orator in Karen Clark.
Well, thank you.
I read your memoir several years ago. It was such a beautiful book.
Thank you.
And such an inspiration. And if you haven't read it, I would suggest you read it. And then your Under Armour spot, which I will what I want. And audience, if you haven't watched the minute and 40 seconds, it's electric.
Fire. It's power.
It's electric. So I was just curious, in terms of writing, what was your biggest challenge? Thank you.
Well, thank you for all of that. I don't really find, I feel about writing the way I do about performing, and, the process of being in a studio and then kind of building up to performance. I've been writing since I was maybe 7 years old. I've journaled. It was, as someone who found it very difficult to speak and to communicate verbally, writing was a way for processing. So when I wrote my memoir, I had so many journals that I went back into, and I could go back to these moments in time that was really incredible to be able to just process it all and have it documented in that way. But I feel like I'm a very open person, so writing is so cathartic for me, and I love collaborating with different people as well. I'm not someone that's opposed to working with a co-writer. I never say I have a ghostwriter. I think it's so important to acknowledge the incredible collaborations that happen. And so, I don't know, maybe the challenge is that I have too much to say.
Oh, wow.
And really narrowing it down and pinpointing what the book will be focused on, because I feel like I always have so much that I want to share. And it's but does that have anything to do with this?
All right. Okay, right up there in the box, right there. Yeah.
What ballet are you doing for your last performance?
That's a great question. It's not Swan Lake. I've kind of curated the whole program, which has been really fun and exciting. So I will be doing an excerpt from Romeo and Juliet. I'll be doing the Balcony Pas with Calvin Royal III. Who was another black dancer in the company. We were supposed to perform Romeo and Juliet before the pandemic hit. We did all this publicity for it. It was the first time that the company was going to have two black principal dancers performing together in a classical work, and then we didn't get to do it. So when I was kind of curating this, I thought it won't be the full-length ballet, but it'll be an opportunity for us to perform a piece of it together. I will also be doing a new piece choreographed by Kyle Abraham, who's one of my favorite choreographers. And then I will be doing a Twyla Tharp piece that I've been doing my whole career called Sinatra Suite, that I'm really excited to revisit.
Can we take two more questions?
Yes.
Is that all right? Okay, right back there and then right over there.
My name's Izzy, and my question is, what would you have changed in your career?
Oh, man. No, nothing. I mean, truly, there have been mistakes made and times I don't know, when I thought I'd maybe listen to different advice but all of these experiences are a part of the journey. And I think it's so incredible to, that we're human beings and we're not robots, and we have these, kind of shaded lives of experiences that are very layered, but they lead you to where you're going and where you end up. And so there's nothing that I would change.
One last question right here.
So I started dancing when I was 14, like 4 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And thank you to my studio here in St. Paul, I was able to train at the Royal Winnipeg Ballet School.
Wow.
And dance with the National Ballet of Cuba over the summer, the principal dancer.
Wow. That's amazing.
But throughout all of this, there was always like that question of like, how am I going to keep making this happen? So my question for you would be, what advice would you have for dancers who have the dream and the opportunities to go pro, but might lack some of the resources to make it happen?
Wow.
Excellent.
Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. That is so incredible. I really think it's important, that you're really open to guidance and different mentors that may come into your life. I think it's difficult, especially when you're a teenager and you're figuring things out and you feel like you really can do these things on your own. It doesn't mean you're failing by accepting help and advice and guidance and kind of broadening the community that you have, because you never know when someone's going to come in handy and might be able to lend support or an opportunity. And the dance world is really small, and I think it's important to connect with other dancers, really do your research and knowing what opportunities are available and not limiting yourself to one dream that you might have. That there are so many companies out there in the world, and so many opportunities. And I think that sometimes we get this tunnel vision when you're like, this is the company I need to dance for, and it's this or nothing, and then you kind of lose out on the opportunity. And I often say to dancers that maybe don't get into the companies that they imagine that they would be in. That sometimes it's really about finding the place that is going to be open and nurturing to you, and that you might find your way back to those spaces when you're ready.
We don't want to let Misty go, but we have to, because she has to go. We wish you the absolute very best on your performance in 3 weeks, and we are so grateful you were here.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.